When Harry's Wife Met H.G. Volume 2, Part 1. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Now we move on with more recollections about my involvement with the American actress who became Harry's wife. The unremarkable American actress faded into the ether following my brief and bromotic encounter with her in a particular bar. I did receive a further telephone call from Susanna 2 or so days later, asking again if I might be minded to effect an introduction for the American actress. "H.G. darling," she trilled, evidently no longer in the mood to chastise me for my intransigence, and having decided that flattery instead would pay dividends. "Was Sophie to your liking, then?" she inquired. "Hello, Susanna. How was the food at Proelia? Did you enjoy your extended time with the boring one?" I retorted. She gave a laugh. "Oh, it was glorious, H.G. You did us a favour actually hightailing it like that." This was vintage Susanna, putting a positive, not gloss, but thick layer on what was ostensibly a frustrating and obstructive time. "You'll never guess who we met," she teased. "Then I shan't bother trying. What do you want, Susanna? I'm very busy." "South Kordofan is preventing opportunities," I remarked. "Ooh, more holidays?" asked Susanna. "Very funny," I replied. "I'm going now." "No, sorry, H.G. I'll be brief." I groaned. Susanna adopted the Polonius approach to being brief. "You've got 30 seconds, I stated. Okay. Will you introduce Meghan to part of your circle?" "No." "Please?" "No." "She's very persistent," added Susanna. "Persistently dull?" "No." "Not even for me?" she coaxed. "No. Goodbye, Susanna." I ended the call. I stared at the phone for a moment to see if she would be so bold as to call me back. I waited. She did not, and the American actress thus dropped off my radar. She returned to my radar the following year. I met with Sophie for lunch, as she proved moderately useful with regard to furnishing me with information. I relish information, and dining on it nears the receipt of fuel in terms of importance for me. "Did you see that Meghan Markle is engaged to Prince Harry?" asked Sophie at our lunch meeting. I had kept Sophie in the position of shelf intimate partner secondary source, which she seemed largely satisfied with. Occasionally she made noises about wanting more, but I quashed such attempts with a charm dump, explaining, for example, why spoil what we already have? The flexibility suits us both, and I wouldn't want to disturb something so refined before then kissing her in the way that I do, ensuring her silence. "Ah, yes, the American actress," I confirmed in respect of her inquiry. "You dodged a bullet there," added Sophie. I snorted. The gun wasn't even loaded. Poor bugger. His life will be a misery. "Oh, I don't know. Perhaps you'll calm him down," offered Sophie. "Calm him down? She'll turn him into a simp. She's already castrated him. Did you see that engagement interview?" Sophie nodded as she placed a forkful of food into her delicate yet delicious mouth. "He's done for," I said with finality. "Susanna was cheesed off by it," commented Sophie. "Probably because the actress will not bother with her any more," I explained. "What makes you say that?" inquired Sophie. "The actresses type do that, you know, cozy up to people, draw them in, use them, and then dump them. Anyway, She's Harry's problem now. "What news do you have for me about Meredith?" I asked, changing topic. Down to business," responded Sophie. That was a brief reappearance on my radar, courtesy of the American actress's engagement, and then came the wedding, which I will return to in future. The American actress was now Harry's wife when she returned to my radar in 2019. She was not someone who invaded my consciousness in the way that seemingly random thoughts do, such as, should I have an ice-cold beer? Or, why on earth has that person been made Prime Minister? Naturally, given Harry's wife's prominence as the wife of Harry, and now a member of the royal family, I would see reportage about her, which I then skimmed over, dismissing her, as I did not find her particularly interesting. Nevertheless, given this swift rise to prominence, and my knowledge that she was one of my brethren, albeit less evolved, I saw an opportunity to share my understanding of her through what I call blog world. It was Thursday the 17th of May, and I was at a Tudor Towers in the beautiful county of Wiltshire, when I opted to inform my readership that the imminent Mrs. Harry Windsor was indeed a narcissist, and the reasons why. Thus, I penned a very royal narcissist, which then became part 1 of the now extensive series of commentary and analysis, given the level of interest in her. I identified what she was from my very first interaction with her, and ahead of her wedding, I wrote the first analysis of her, being way ahead of anybody else, and then followed this up in 2019 with a review of her first year since entering the royal family, and the extensive instances which confirmed what I already knew, for example, her behaviour at Wimbledon, the bananas of empowerment, for example. This also took place after a further interaction in relation to her. This time, she was not the desperate social climber looking for a leg up into society through matchmaking. No, arguably she'd made it, and now had a title to boot, the Duchess of Sussex. I was attending a particular function at which both Harry's wife and Prince Harry would be attending. I had dealings with Prince Harry previously, prior to the spider coming along, and found him an enthusiastic man, who, whilst somewhat cerebrally challenged, showed commitment to those matters his status obligated him to be involved in. It was clear his military involvement afforded him some usefulness, which he readily embraced, and you'd categorise him as privileged yet committed, something which Harry's wife has tampered with considerably. I was engaged in a conversation with my relevant contact, the Minister-Councillor, a gentleman who was from a particular children's charity, and a lady politician. We formed a foursome in the centre of the room. The discussion between the four of us had covered a range of matters as tea was sipped and pastries were declined, by me at least, but Charity Man was keen to indulge, something his straining waistcoat confirmed was a regular occurrence for him. We talked about governmental issues surrounding child poverty, where I made a show of concern, whilst thinking their parents ought to have tried harder at school and they wouldn't be in the mess in the first place. But I had learned that such a spoken observation, whilst accurate and true, was best kept within the Tudor thought machine. Football got a brief look in also. The politician was a Chelsea fan, not something her accent tied with, and she explained it was a parental influence that affected her team of choice. The Minister-Councillor followed nobody, since football wasn't a major interest for him, and the pastry fiend was a Watford supporter. Given City's increasing dominance, I was able to score a few points, most satisfying, before the conversation inevitably turned to the anticipated arrival of Harry and Harry's wife. "Have you met them?" asked the Minister-Councillor. I was about to answer, but Pastry Belly got in first, which caused a flicker of annoyance for me. Tempted as it was to punch him in his expanding gut or ram a Danish pastry into his ill-governed maw, I dismissed such action and made a note to belittle him later. As he held court, the doors to the main reception room opened. Being taller than those around me, I was able to see Harry, dressed in an unremarkable navy suit, a white shirt and insipid tie, who was accompanied by his pregnant wife, who had decided to turn up wearing a roll of AstroTurf. "Back to football," I whispered. The female politician stifled a laugh, understanding my remark. Harry's wife entered the room, ahead of her husband, who danced behind her like some obsequious courtier. That fixed, rictus grin I had witnessed years earlier was stuck to her face as she entered the room. Another interaction had begun. What would be revealed this time?